If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz, and I'm here today to review the 1998 Academy Award winner for Best Picture, Shakespeare in Love, starring Joseph Fiennes, Gwyneth Paltrow, Geoffrey Rush, Tom Wilkinson, Colin Firth, and Judi Dench, directed by John Madden. Not that John Madden, but John Madden. I did this joke the last time. I don't think it was that funny then. I don't know why I repeated it. I'm sorry. I think the one thing that Shakespeare in Love is most known for now, and there might be some that will debate this, but in the past 30 years, I would say this is probably the most surprising win for Best Picture in the past 30 years for the Oscars. Remember it when, God, was it? It was 99 when this when this won Best Picture. I remember before the ceremony, it was a lock. Everyone thought it was a lock that Saving Private Ryan was going to win. Saving Private Ryan dominated the box office in the summer. Everyone talked about it. They were still talking about it to that very day. And Spielberg was a lock to get director, which to many thought, well, if Spielberg can get director, usually what happens is the one that wins Best Director will also win Best Picture. And that's not exactly true. That's happened a number of times in the past. But in this case, it shocked everybody when I think it was Harrison Ford came onto the stage and announced the winner was Shakespeare in Love. I remember this back. I was in high school when this happened, and when that was announced, people were pissed. Not even just kids, because I think a number of kids saw it with their parents and really was affected by that movie. Thought it was technically amazing, but also emotionally resonant. It is a good movie. It really is. But I don't think anyone heard of Shakespeare in Love at the time. But then there was me who saw Shakespeare in Love in theaters and was like, no, I'm for it. I'm good with it. Because I really like Shakespeare in Love. I definitely enjoyed the movie quite a bit when I saw it in high school. If you look at the Oscars for that year, for 98, the list of films that got nominated were like, it was big. The nominees for Best Picture that year, if you look back, are stacked. Like, it is 5 really good movies. The nominees were the eventual winner, Shakespeare in Love, Saving Private Ryan, Thin Red Line, Life is Beautiful, and Elizabeth. I think all 5 are great movies. At least 4 stars for all 5 of them. If I were to be honest, the one that I think is the best is the Thin Red Line, Saving Private Ryan, Shakespeare, Life is Beautiful, and then Elizabeth. And again, Elizabeth is a great movie. Cate Blanchett's great in that movie. But yeah, if I'm being completely fair, it used to be Thin Red Line, Shakespeare in Love, Saving Private Ryan, and then Life is Beautiful, Elizabeth. But after this review, I'm switching it over to Thin Red Line, Saving Private Ryan. I think Saving Private Ryan technically is an amazing film, and it does really well for what it is, but there's something about The Thin Red Line that I think is just an amazing movie that I think should have won. But am I mad that Shakespeare in Love won? No, it's a great movie. But, that's just my feeling of it. But I do understand why a lot of people were upset that Saving Private Ryan didn't win, because it's really the only film around that time that was really emotionally effective that they watched. I don't think anyone heard of Life is Beautiful. Wow, I'm just remembering. I think I've seen all 5 of these movies in theaters. Yeah, I did. That's rare. I haven't done that in a long time. But yeah, all 5 of the movies I saw in theaters, loved all 5 of the movies. But Thin Red Line, I think, is the best of the 5. So there you go. Like, am I upset that Shakespeare in Love won? No, I think it deserved it. But I think that's what people remember Shakespeare in Love for, is that it robbed Saving Private Ryan of Best Picture. And I hear people still talk about this to this very day. And there are reasons why. There are many people think it was more of Harvey Weinstein's chicanery that led to that win, which, to be fair, that might be the case. He was a big power player back then. He was until the whole scandal he had in the 2010s. I still think it deserves the win. Maybe not over Saving Private Ryan, but I won't say that it was robbed. I think Shakespeare in Love is a very good movie that deserved its win. All right, so let's get into the review of Shakespeare in Love, directed by John Madden. But before we get to that, let's get to the plot. This is about a young Will Shakespeare who starts a relationship with a young woman that blossoms into him creating his all-time favorite play, Romeo and Juliet. Joseph Fiennes plays William Shakespeare, and the love interest, Viola, is played by Gwyneth Paltrow. It's about him creating the play and finding the inspiration to write the play through his whirlwind romance with Viola in this movie. That's basically the film's basic plot. So why don't I get to my 3 points? And my first point for Shakespeare in Love is it's a knowing celebration of Shakespeare's work. When I saw Shakespeare in Love in theaters in 98, I was like most people in high school when they heard Shakespeare and were rolling their eyes going, oh God, why can't they just speak normal? My eyes glazed over and I was like, all right, God, yeah, doth twixt my bosom in, oh, for fuck's sake. I'm like a lot of high school kids, and I just kind of zoned out. I was like, oh my God, I can't stand this. It wasn't until I saw Shakespeare in Love where I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I get now why people love it so much. And Shakespeare in Love is interesting because if you are aware of Shakespeare's work, like I am now, I like Shakespeare's work. I've read a lot of his plays now and some of his poetry. And I appreciate his work now, but back then I didn't. But I must say this, like the film is got a ton of winks, nods, references to a plethora of his work and I would also say his inspirations and who he inspired. There is a ton of references to plays like Hamlet, Twelfth Night, Romeo and Juliet. There are a number of them. Some of them are very subtle, but a lot of them are very obvious, but they're done in a clever way where it's enjoyable. And I think this is my first point because I really think whether you love him, like him, or you're like, he's good. I wouldn't go about reading his play on my own, but I enjoy Shakespeare, sure. I think there are things you will like about this movie. And because I was familiar enough with Shakespeare, I really like the referential nature of this film. My second point, it is a quaint, charming comedy of words. I think some of the best things about this movie is the comedy. I think it's surprisingly funny. It shocked me, too, because when I watched it in theaters, what really got me in this movie was the love story, the romance. That's where I was hooked into this movie. And then the Shakespearean stuff was like, oh, yeah, that's neat. It's the exact opposite. The comedic wordplay in this movie is utterly hilarious at times. It's also charming in ways, too. I think you would have to have an appreciation of creativity and of theater to a certain extent. I'm not really a theater guy. I'm very much a movie guy. But there are a lot of cross sections between movies and theater, so I do get to a certain extent what the movie is coming from in certain aspects. But man, like the comedy of words, the way that the film does its dialogue is really smart and funny. It does have a little bit of the flowery language that Shakespeare's plays had, but it doesn't have it all the time. So you're not having a lot of those really flowery, really flamboyant language that I think a lot of people, when they read it, get really confused and roll their eyes at and go, oh God, just say the fucking words, please. Like, someone just tell me what they're saying. There's really not a lot of that, but it's only there when they're referencing Shakespeare, which on the one hand can seem a little corny, but I think it really works in this film. It adds to the charm of the comedy, so I really like the wordplay of Shakespeare in Love. And my third point, a lacking romantic plot. Yeah, this is the thing that really surprised me. I mentioned in the second point, the thing that really captured me when I first saw it in the theater was the romance. I think this is my fourth viewing of the film, I think the romance is the most lacking part. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's a bad romance. It just didn't have that spark that made me believe what was going on screen. I don't think it's necessarily the actor's fault here. The actors Joseph Fiennes and Gwyneth Paltrow. I think separately, and when they're doing the play stuff, and Gwyneth Paltrow's character is dealing with her life outside of the play, I think they're really good. But together, when the romance starts, something doesn't spark. Something doesn't click. I think the point of the film is to be more of a comedy of words referencing Shakespeare than to be a romance. I think romance was the backseat of this film. Even though it's weird because the film is literally called Shakespeare in Love. But I really think the point of Shakespeare in Love is to be a movie that takes all of Shakespeare's work and finds a clever way to show how he could have found inspiration. Because if you really pay attention to the movie, nearly everything that happens in the movie is referenced in other things, which pretty much denotes that what happens in this film inspired his later works, which is utterly ridiculous, but it's still funny and kind of charming in that way. So the romantic plot didn't do much for me. It really kind of fell flat. I'm not saying it's bad, but it just doesn't hit as much as the comedy does. But the comedy is, I think, the strongest thing about this movie. Okay, so who do I recommend this for? I recommend this for a Shakespeare fan. I mean, there's so many references and allusions to his work and things that he's done. I'm not a Shakespeare historian, but I've heard that a lot of Shakespeare historians are really not entirely happy with this film because it takes a lot of creative licensing. I don't care. I'm fine with that. So I think if you're a Shakespeare fan, you would really enjoy the referential nature of this movie. And if you enjoy wordplay comedy, if you enjoy comedies from a lot of comedies that deal with dialogue more than just slapstick and physical humor, there is a little bit of physical humor in this movie, but if you are more into dialogue comedy, this movie is very good with that. Who would not recommend this for? If romance is the key drive of watching the film, I think the romance is the weakest part, and if that is mainly why you're watching this, I wouldn't say not watch it, but it's not the strongest thing about this movie. And I might be wrong. There's a lot of people who enjoy this movie for the romance, but I think it's the weakest part of the film. And who I not recommend this for is that if you fell asleep during Shakespeare lessons in class. I mean, yeah. Even though the flowery language is not as potent as it is in most Shakespearean plays, it's still there. So the wittiness and the comedic parts might go over your head. And if you're not interested in Shakespeare, you're not going to get the jokes and the references that are in this movie. So if you hear Shakespeare and go, ugh, I don't want nothing to do with this, then don't. Just don't bother. Overall, I recommend this. I don't love it as much as I did when I saw it in theaters back in '98, but I still very much like this. I still think it's a great movie. I'm just surprised that the romance didn't hit as hard as the last time. And I really think it's because the comedic elements and the referential elements are what present in the movie as the main things, which is, again, kind of strange because it's called Shakespeare in Love, and the whole plot revolves around the romance between Shakespeare and Viola. So it's weird. I am recommending it. I'm recommending it highly, actually, even though I think the thing that it advertises is its weakest part. Again, I recommend Shakespeare in Love. It's a very good to great movie. Check it out if you haven't. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. All right, so for next time, we have a couple movies that are coming. We're going to be reviewing on Thursday and Saturday, so let's get that done right away. Thursday, I'm reviewing The Way, Way Back. And then Saturday, me and Kim are reviewing The Philadelphia Story. On Tuesday, I thought a great idea would be to do movies based around Hanukkah. Until I looked it up and realized there's not a lot of movies about Hanukkah. Unless I want to watch all Adam Sandler films, which, no, I'm not doing that. So I am going to do a little bit of a twist. Since it's Hanukkah season, it's not yet. When this comes out, I think it's another few days before Hanukkah starts. I figure that we would do a sort of celebration of the Festival of Lights, and we will review films that are about Jewish people or have prominent Jewish actors or directors. So I chose for Tuesday's film the 2022 Oscar-nominated film The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg. To be quite fair, I was considering other movies like Fiddler on the Roof, but as soon as I saw The Fabelmans was about a Jewish family, I was like, boom, there we go, The Fabelmans. I'll watch that on Tuesday. I'll probably figure something out for Thursday, something different, maybe something more you would expect. But I will use The Fabelmans on Tuesday as my quote-unquote Jewish movie or about Jewish people movie on this one. So tune in Thursday for when I review The Way, Way Back. Saturday, where me and Kim review The Philadelphia Story. And next Tuesday, where I review The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg. I am The Wiz, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.